doing the spoiler free as much as possible since it just came out today?
No. Well, we're talking about Star Wars now. By the way, we are live again.
Oh, we are? Oh, shit. Ah.
Not only are
Surprise!
we talking about Star Wars, we're talking about the new Star Wars.
The newest
Rise,
possible. I'm
Rise of
trying.
the Skywalker.
I'm trying to figure out a way to do this.
We could do like for the first half of this talk, do like a spoiler-free thing, and then like give a warning when we're about to go into spoiler territory.
Yeah, and then I wonder what me and Bradley are gonna do. I want to watch it, but I also don't particularly care. I don't think.
Spoilers?
Should I care?
So-
Like, is this a movie worth caring about, spoiler wise?
Eh.
There are some moments that. So,
No.
I'm gonna start talking with my dissertation right here.
Yeah, I'll step away then for the spoiler talk.
We'll see what
We will say if there is a spoiler that if you care, it will, and you hear us say it, it will ruin the entire movie for you. So here's a warning.
Well, there you go. But for now, spoiler-free talk. Go.
Yeah.
All right. C-3PO is Kylo Ren's mother.
Okay.
Yeah,
I always kind of thought.
that makes
Um,
sense.
Okay, so I think I'm like the one person in this group that's like an actual big Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
Considering I went to Disney World by myself.
So you're gonna give us the official review.
Joe's not a Star Wars fan, not really.
I am a semi Star Wars fan. I like every time I used to get sick as a kid, I would watch the original trilogy on VHS.
Oh.
And
sorry.
I think one of my favorite games of all time is actually like Rebel Strike and Rogue Squadron.
That works out.
I say Joe's not a true Star Wars fan because he's a reasonable, non-insane human being, and I think that disqualifies you from being a Star Wars
I
fan.
guess so.
Up until I was 20-something, all of my Star Wars knowledge came from Lego Star Wars.
That's fair.
Of course. I mean, Lego Star Wars is good.
It's a good fucking game.
So, how do I start this? So then this movie. So I always do a thing on Facebook whenever I see a movie, is I write my words to star review for it. And my review for it was fun.
Really?
So it's 3 words, so 3 stars. Makes sense.
That's a weird review. I never knew you did that. What the fuck? You hid that from us for so long. What is
Wait,
this?
so your review is gonna have the number of words the number of stars you give it?
Correct.
So if it's like 1 star, you're just like shit.
Basically.
What do you say for 5 stars? What, like, it was really good?
Damn.
I don't usually get off good things, but it's usually like can't think of one right now because I actually put some effort into them. But like,
I kind of love this idea. We should start doing this.
yeah. But I always kind of do it. I don't tell anyone that I do it, but it's my way of like coping with myself and just telling people how I feel about things. I feel like I have to do it for Star Wars because everyone that knows me knows I'm a Star Wars boy. So, but anyways, yeah. So that's like my my super simple review is it was fun. There was like only 1 or 2 things in the whole movie where I really went, oh, that's a concept that I didn't think about, and I really enjoyed that. There was one at the very end that it kind of made everything click in terms of like a character's motivation for something. Like, oh, that makes a lot of sense why they do this now. I just never thought of it that way, and I really liked it as like a Star Wars fan's lore thing. The big thing about this movie is its pacing and the fact that it feels like it was what J.J. Abrams wanted Episode 8 to be, and what he wanted this movie to be, and like shoved them together.
Ooh.
Because there's a point in the movie where I go like, that's supposed to be the climax of the last movie.
Yeah, I did hear.
That's
this
interesting.
is, like, I heard this is like
Yeah.
an overly dense movie, like it's trying to do too much.
Yes.
After about the first 45 minutes, it kind of like gets rid of that a little bit.
It starts to slow down a bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's still like, it feels like it's making up lost time, which I thought was The Last Jedi's biggest weakness. Was it happens immediately after the Force Awakens, meaning there is no kind of like character development that kind of happens, because that's the biggest strength of Star Wars, is that you can go into each movie, with the exception of The Last Jedi, and assume there's been a time skip. So you know there is off-screen adventures that have happened, so you can reintroduce these characters of having a stronger relationship with each other, having more experience, and not have to show any of it.
Hey.
Which makes it really good when you're able to go from like episode 4 to episode 5, and they're in Hoth, and you don't have to explain why they're at Hoth. You can just think, oh, it's been years. They're here now. Han is like, I have to go now. I helped out as much as I can, but I've got a bounty on my head, so I have to leave. And you have all these motivations you can lay out beforehand.
Any other franchise, if you were like, all this character development happens between films, people would lose their minds. But because it's Star Wars, it's brilliant now.
I'm not saying like all of it has to happen, but the point being is that you can introduce characters. You can introduce a part of a character's life. We can assume that Luke, Leia, and Han have done other things, and allows certain interactions to kind of be justified. Like, it doesn't mean they're changed. It just means that there's more room for like witty banter back and forth, and they get to know each other. They know each other a lot better now.
All that to say, you feel like that's been missing in this trilogy.
I felt just as confused starting at the beginning of Part 9 as I did probably when I watched Part 6 as a young child. So they did keep that consistent, you know.
But it's just, to me, like, the biggest thing is that this movie really compounds that part of The Last Jedi for me, where it's just like, oh, The Last Jedi in the grand scheme of this whole trilogy doesn't really land an impact except on like one or two things, you know.
That's shocking, because that movie had so many final events that seemed important to the lore and to the story. But fuck it, JJ just sweeping it under.
There's a lot of it's a lot of just kind of like you could definitely take Last Jedi as like, oh, this was a side Last Jedi feels more like a Rogue One movie than it does an actual like episode movie in comparison to this movie.
Damn.
Because of the way that it like fits in between things. I still like Last Jedi. Like, I'm one of the few people that like have a positive opinion on it.
Joe, hold on. People are gonna turn off this goddamn video. You're a pariah now. I also like Last Jedi. Minus, I say this to Joe a lot. If you take out the casino subplot of Last Jedi, that is a fun movie with some interesting takes on characters that were, let's say, lukewarm to me before. I know Joe would have different opinions there, but
this movie, I still think Kylo Ren's the best character in this whole entire trilogy.
Right? People shit on him because he has emotions. Oh.
Kylo Ren's great.
There's a scene in this movie that's probably the best scene in all of the entirety of the sequel trilogy.
Tell me this: is there some good Kylo Ren content in this film? Because I think
there is.
All right,
there is.
All right, I'm in.
And me and Tyler laugh, and like, that's great.
Great.
There was I asked Joe some stupid questions during this movie that kind of made him mad.
But not mad at Tyler, but mad at the people that made the movie.
Is that Baby Yoda?
No,
I didn't ask that. No.
God, I'm trying to think what else. So that's the biggest thing for this movie is the pacing and the way it just feels like J.J. Abrams took two movies, cut one of them in like half, and then shoved them together. Palpatine.
Don't go too much into him. He's on the cover. He's on the poster.
Yeah, we know he's there somehow.
Yeah.
The journey of Palpatine.
I have really mixed feelings about this. But it relates back to taking the two movies and shoving them together, kind of thing. Because it could have been a good idea, but once again, The Last Jedi exists instead of the first half of this movie as a movie. Does that make sense?
J.J. Abrams did a little bit of retconning.
Yeah, and it's kind of frustrating.
Very explicit retconning. Like, you said this, but actually this.
Yes.
No, I know exactly what that would mean then.
Yeah.
Oh, that's terrible. If he did that.
You don't know what it means, but
I could take
there's
a
little
guess.
bit. This movie's.
There's a plot point in episode 8 that everyone's like, "Oh, it meant nothing," and I was like, "That's so great," but I bet it's not so great anymore.
Oh man, All of those plot points, I
Fuck!
love.
Oh, I'm already angry.
Something
Whatever.
that isn't spoiler because it's already been discussed in like interviews is the relationship between Poe and Finn.
No,
They gay or what? What's going on?
I wish.
They said in the interviews like they wish that was explored more. This you can see hints of it in this movie.
Oh, but they're like non-committal hints then.
There's a scene in the opening with them where they're playing galactic chess against Chewie on the Falcon, and it's the two of them versus him, and they're going back and forth against Chewie, and it's great. It's so fun. Yeah.
Sorry. Oh, there's the way they argue with each other. They sound like a couple.
Yeah.
Like there are moments in the movie where Finn, like, there's this ongoing joke in the movie where Finn keeps asking Poe, like, "How do you know how to do that?" And it's like, "Oh, how do you know how to do that?" And it's like this, like, you imagine like when you're in a relationship with somebody and like they keep surprising you with these things because you think that you know them, and it's like, "Oh, I didn't know you could do that."
Yeah.
And
They're a really fun dynamic.
They're great.
We're going more into the positive sections of this now. C-3PO had some of the best lines in this movie during the comedy.
I find this hard to believe.
No,
Yeah.
C-3PO saves this movie.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Maybe it'll
Yeah.
turn me around on him.
Like I said before, there was an interesting concept that was introduced at the end that explained a lot of motivation of the character that I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I don't know why I never thought about it that way. There's a force power that was used that I'm happy that kind of got used finally.
Should people watch The Mandalorian before watching this?
I don't give a shit.
Okay. There you go, folks.
Yeah, either one's fine. The ending scene gets a solid 75% good, 25% bad to me, mainly because I guessed what the last line was, and I was like, okay, whatever. But at the same time, I thought it was very cathartic for the whole like Skywalker saga kind of thing.
You know, Finn, I guess we were the Skywalkers all along.
What else? Once again, like I said, Kylo Ren has probably the best scene in the entirety of the sequel trilogy, and it's not an action scene or anything. It's an actual like character moment, and I really liked it like a lot. The only problem there is that it was supposed to be different in a very small way, but it couldn't because of real world circumstance. But I'll get to that later probably. Let's see what else.
We've gone 12 minutes in the spoiler free, so if you want to wrap up the spoiler free, and then you can go.
So I think here's the thing: if you didn't like The Last Jedi, and you wanted all your fan fiction things to come true, you'll enjoy this movie. If you like The Last Jedi and you like everything being kind of, God, what's the name called? When you turn it on its head,
Subversion.
Yes, thank you. You subverted your expectations. I literally guessed every scene as soon as it came onto the screen. Like I knew exactly what happened from which isn't necessarily a bad thing all the time, but I literally sat there like, you're gonna say this, you're gonna say this, you're gonna say this, you're gonna do this.
That seems like I think that would be a bad IMO.
Probably is bad for a lot of people, but I was just kind of like, I already know what this movie's gonna be. I just need to be entertained. One negative I felt though was the action is probably the weakest in this out of all three movies.
Yeah,
it's pretty weak. It's pretty boring in some places. In a lot of places, actually, it's not nearly it.
The Last Jedi, which is the 8th one, right? That's
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
That one is definitely probably top tier action, I would think.
The forest scene in The Force Awakens where it's Finn and Rey versus Kylo in the forest. That is visually striking, well choreographed, just feels emotional.
I agree.
But hey, that's a bad movie because it's just A New Hope again, so what do I fucking do?
I liked this trilogy, and I am a very casual Star Wars fan. Like, I don't care about the lore all that much. Like, when I found out what Rogue One was, I was like, oh, this is neat. And then I started watching it, and I was like, oh, man, all these characters are great. Why aren't they in any other Star Wars movies?
I should watch Rogue One. That's one of them I haven't seen.
Of all the new Star Wars movies, Rogue One's the one I enjoyed most.
I thought you didn't even watch the other ones.
I watched what was episode 7 called?
The Force Awakens.
Yeah, I watched that, and then I watched some of the Han Solo thing.
That one's fine. That one's for the boys.
Yeah, I enjoyed Rogue One though.
Solo is the forgettable Star Wars movie because I even forget about it. Like I literally was on Netflix and I saw Solo on there. I was like, oh, I forgot this was a movie.
Let's roll into spoiler sections. I'll go stand over there, and you guys can.
You probably don't care.
For people listening who don't want to do the spoiler section, we have timestamps in the video description, so you can just skip to the next segment if you need to avoid spoilers.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Call me or like start waving into the camera when you guys are done.
Right. Let's just start waving, and Willer's gonna be like, "What's going on?"
And then Ray died.
Oh, fun fact! This is the first time we're using our webcams during recording.
And then Ray died for real.
Oh, she did actually.
Oh fuck!
Spoiler. There you go. There's the spoiler.
Hey, we gave our spoiler section warning.
Oh, okay. Bradley, do you care about anything?
You're a moderator then.
I'm fine with spoilers.
Okay. So in this movie, Palpatine is reintroduced.
Okay.
And I like having Bradley here as someone who hasn't seen it because it just lets me summarize things and kind of
like this is me watching the movie.
Yeah.
He's not gonna go see it now.
Great, actually, Bradley, go. Let me tell you the summary of it.
Okay.
Go see it with Willer, and before you go to see it with Willer, write down your predictions and give it to him.
Oh god. Oh no. That'd be diabolical.
Anyways, okay. So Palpatine's alive. It turns out that Palpatine has been engineering the First Order since the beginning of Episode 7. He manufactured Snoke. Like, can you hear us, Willer? No? Okay. He manufactured Snoke. Like, he literally, like, made clones of him and had them go out in the world and gave him and controlled him as a puppet, basically, to the dark side of the Force. Which is a cool idea, but it needs to be introduced earlier in that.
Yeah, so
trilogy.
Palpatine is, like, still the big bad.
Yes. He's basically kept alive through cloning technology and just other kind of dark side.
Wait, and so they didn't reintroduce the fact that he's still alive until this movie?
Yes.
They reintroduced it in part 8. Didn't
No,
they?
they didn't.
So they actually didn't like that. Like I thought that was like the entire point of that was like there was.
Nope.
It said at the very beginning there was a recording across the galaxy that Palpatine.
That's part of the whole crawl. Is that's just the crawl is introducing. Do you understand why now? That's the big flaw in Episode 8 now. Is
I forgot, and I was just like, wow.
Episode 8 doesn't matter now in terms of the grand scheme of the story, which is a big problem now, in my opinion. But for some people, it's. But let's move forward. So Kylo is now. Kylo now finds Palpatine. Palpatine's like, look, listen, I got a whole brand new army for you, filled with Death Star guns. Every ship has a Death Star gun on it, which is like, okay, that's a little bit different. But all you have to do is kill Rey. That's all I ask. And Kylo's like, all right. The one thing that does carry over from The Last Jedi to this is their kind of bond that they develop over the course of Episode 8, which is very good. Still one of the best part of that whole kind of sequence. And so the whole A-plot for our heroes is basically they have to find a Sith artifact called a Wayfinder because it's the only way to get to this planet that Palpatine is on, and they have to kill Palpatine in order to stop the Sith from leaving.
They're about to blitzkrieg the galaxy, basically.
Yeah.
It's like the army is called the Last Order.
Yeah, which I thought was the Final Order, but which is whatever. It's a dumb bullshit name, but I like it, so I don't care.
Yeah.
So along the way, a lot of things happen. Adventure happens. It turns out that Rey is Palpatine's granddaughter. What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the way it's revealed though. Like, I was kind of sitting there, and I look over to Joe. I'm like, that's illegal, right?
Yeah, I was always sitting here. I thought she was gonna be like related to the Skywalkers in some way.
No. So like, there's this moment where her and Kylo Ren are like Chewie gets arrested on this desert planet, and he's captured by stormtroopers, and Rey and Kylo are like force pulling / pushing this transport ship that has Chewie on it.
It's a really cool scene.
It is. They're like standing apart. It's in the middle. It's like building up. They're grunting at each other, you know. It's like the camera's getting closer on the faces, and like out of nowhere, lightning comes out of her hands. And I'm
And
just
she blows up the transport.
yeah, it blows up the transport that Chewie's on.
Fuck.
And Chewie's dead.
For 5 minutes. And then turns out there was another transport that he was actually on.
He was the finest mind of his generation.
Truly was. But yeah,
But that cool, but like yeah, it's a cool scene because it's like she starts to get really angry at the fact that she can't do this and taps into the dark side and it comes out as lightning, which is really cool. Great foreshadowing. It's just that whole plot point is rushed because it's supposed to be the climax of the movie before it. Does that make sense?
yeah.
So that gets revealed. They go to the planet that the Wayward is on, which is actually another moon in Endor. By the way, Endor is not the planet that the Thing was on in the last movie. It's the gas giant that the moon is going around. Does that make sense?
Okay.
I mean, I'm the one who saw it. Sure.
Okay. Like basically, like there are other moons of Endor, which is why they were on a big, like, kind of island water planet rather than a forest planet.
Ah, okay. Gotcha.
Because I know that people will be very confused on that because they don't listen. It's just a fucking technicality that no one cares about. So they go there, and Rey finds the Wayfinder, and then Kylo confronts her again. They fight. Rey stabs Kylo in a moment of weakness because Leia sacrifices her life to reach out to him one last time. To try
Leia dies?
With the Force.
Yes.
What?
Yep. She dies. But as Kylo's dying, Rey realizes she's made a mistake and heals him using the Force.
Which is highlighted earlier in the movie when they're looking for the Sith Wayfinder. There's this big serpent thing that's injured for some reason, and she heals it, so it like knocks away out of this underground cave they're locked in.
Yeah, she heals it and like runs away. But she heals Kylo, and in the movie she mentions very briefly, and it's a very offhanded comment, that she takes her Force life energy and puts it into the person. So it drains her a little bit whenever she does it. I think people are going to ignore when they complain about this movie. I can understand why you would ignore it, because it's literally a single line. There's no really visual repercussions that are seen in the movie for doing it. So heals him and steals Kylo's ship, and with Kylo's ship, she flies off. Kylo then has a moment where he gets visited by Han Solo. Harrison Ford comes back and does one last scene with Kylo Ren, but it's very obvious that the scene was supposed to be Leia, but Carrie Fisher died. So they couldn't do the scene, which is really sad.
Oh, that makes sense. But it's weird though, because she was in the movie still.
Yeah, I don't know how they did that. That was really
it was very well done.
Yeah, it was. But that scene's the best scene in the movie because it mirrors the scene in The Force Awakens where they're standing on the bridge. And he's just like, I have to do something. I don't know if I can do it. Han's like, you can do it. And he actually like does it and throws away his lightsaber, his like red lightsaber.
He gives Kylo the high ground in that moment.
Yeah, he does, actually. So Rey flies off. She goes back to the plane that she trained on in episode 8. She talks to Luke for a little bit, and Luke's like, don't be a pussy. Go fight Palpatine. And it's revealed that Leia had her own lightsaber, which was hidden on that planet. And this is like number one for me that blows my mind as a visual, like as someone who consumes movies and knows and like understands visual storytelling. Leia's lightsaber is blue.
No, it's green in the flashback.
That was Luke's. That was Luke's.
What? Okay, I was so confused. I was like, there's a green and a blue lightsaber in the flashback. Whose lightsaber is she using? And whose is like, I was like, where's the green lightsaber?
Right. That's it's especially done for the last scene because it would have been so much better to have a little bit more color in that scene too.
I was like seriously though, whose lightsaber has Rey been using the entire time? Because I thought it was Luke's.
It is Luke's. It
Then
was
why
Anakin.
is it on green?
Okay, so it's Anakin's lightsaber from Episode 3, which got passed down to Luke, which Luke lost in 5, and then Luke made his own in 6. But then this gets rediscovered in 7, and then given to Rey in 7, and she uses it in 8, and so forth.
Okay.
It's kind of like a weird Excalibur kind of thing. Anyways, it just made me really frustrated when we're introducing another lightsaber that's Leia's, who we've never seen use. Rather than make it a whole different color, hell, make it purple or green. I don't care. We make it blue again, which blows my mind.
Yeah.
As someone that's like as a way to like just introducing more colors into like your environment. So she gets that lightsaber, and Luke's like, "You got to take both lightsabers because you're going to need them." And she uses Luke's X-wing to go to the planet of Palpatine's on. She leads the path for the Resistance to follow her, so they can go in and invade and try to wipe out the planet, the Star Destroyers that can blow up planets. You following along, Bradley, so far?
I got you.
Okay. So she gets there, and Palpatine's in this big kind of like claw thing that's like puppeteering him around and stuff. This is really...
He looks like GLaDOS from Portal.
He does. I actually really dug it. I thought it was like a spider chair thing. The fact that he's like, "Well, are you okay?"
What the fuck was that?
I think that was Willer.
Willard died.
All right.
But he's in like this claw thing like GLaDOS is in Portal, which I thought was really cool. But she ends up on the ground, and Palpatine reveals that the way the Sith operate is that whenever you kill the Master of the Sith out of hatred or anger or whatever, all the Sith before them possess you, which is why everyone keeps falling to the dark side when they do that.
Yeah, they reveal that there's Avatar logic.
Yeah. So like basically the Master of the Sith is every Sith before them, and they want their apprentice to kill them because it means they live on literally within that apprentice, and it passes down that way. Which I thought was a great way of doing that, because it represents the two different factors of the Jedi and the Sith war, where the Jedi move on to become one with the Force, whereas the Sith coalesce in power and become one thing together. I'm like, that's a neat concept. That's a great way of doing that. I thought that was really cool. So the whole plot of the movie was Palpatine wanted Rey to actually like kill her or someone to kill him out of anger, because it allows him to be reborn again within this person.
But
she's like, "No, I have a boyfriend." And
I don't understand. Like, so before we get into that,
yeah.
There's a little bit, because the same thing apparently happens with the Jedi, with the Sith, like that he is all the Sith, and it comes to reveal that.
Or that one seems more like kind of a representation thing, and more of a like the Sith seem more of like a possession, and kind of like we're shoving everyone into one body kind of thing, whereas the light side of the Force is more of like you are the representation of all of us on the light side, and because we are the light side in the more balanced part of the Force, we can help you in some way. It's a sense of freedom, if that makes sense.
Because there's a moment at the beginning of the movie where Rey is meditating and she's trying to enter the Avatar state.
Basically, yeah.
And she's like, "I'm trying to access all of the Jedi before me," and she's like, be with me, and they're like, "Oh, they're not with me," and she's like, "I can't access the Jedi."
Yeah, that seems like something that was from that first movie, between these two that was supposed to be there but wasn't ever introduced.
So with Rey being like, this is a question I had, and this just I didn't understand. Is like, how is Rey the granddaughter of Palpatine? That means one of the parents, like we see her parents in a flashback at one point.
Correct. The son was the father was the son of Palpatine.
Yeah, but when?
Are you asking Who
When?
fucked Palpatine? I don't know.
Yes. Like, he's been in this underground deep planet recovering this entire time after the Death Star blew up. Like,
Yeah.
who? What? When? Like, how did this son get off the planet? Why did he procreate? Like, what is going on?
I mean, I imagine he had a son when he was the emperor of the Galactic Empire, and then his son was like, "You're a fucking Hitler," and left and went and got married, and then had a kid. And Palpatine, after he died, probably put failsafe in of like, "Go find this kid and bring him to me so they can kill me one day."
Yeah,
And
but this is Palpatine. Like, we see how strong he is by the end of this movie, and I'm like, that's cool.
yeah,
How does this nobody son escape his clutches? Like, what?
that's his son. He's the son of himself. So,
And why
I don't
does
know.
it?
That doesn't
Palpatine.
matter.
It
doesn't
does matter. It does matter. It confused me so much.
He doesn't escape because he gets shanked by the weird alien dude with the weird eyes.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
That didn't bother me that much. But so we get to the end of the movie. Turns out that Rey and Kylo's link is a lot more powerful than we realize, and it's known as a diode in the Force. Palpatine literally drains their power to revive himself fully, so he's back to being his old like, "Oh, I am now the Emperor again."
Yeah,
Um,
because
and then
they both have the power to heal.
yeah, and he takes Kylo, throws him down the hole like Darth Vader did to him. Like, he literally says that I'm doing this because Darth Vader literally did this to me 20 years ago. And then tries to electrocute Rey. Rey uses both lightsabers and the power of all the Jedi that came before him. And we get this kind of neat fan service scene where we have every actor that was a yes. Can you get out?
Did you like the new Star Wars movie?
Yes, get out.
We'll be editing that out.
I know. So there's a moment where every on-screen actor that was ever a Jedi in the series, the voice line during this scene, and basically just encourages her to fight Palpatine, and she reflects on the lightning back and kills Palpatine, and then she dies. Turns out Kylo's alive, climbs back up, uses Force Heal on her, and then he dies. But because he's through redemption, he ends up ascending into the Force, like Obi-Wan and Luke Skywalker and so forth.
I had the question during this movie, Bradley, because Luke, like, we see different people from the afterlife show up in this movie.
Yeah.
Because apparently everybody can just do it whenever they fucking feel like it. Because Han Solo shows up.
And he says you must go to the Dagobah system.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then Luke shows up, but Luke has a silhouette. He unlocked some special achievement character glow for the afterlife. And I'm like, are there different heavens? Like, is there a Jedi heaven and a normal person heaven?
The Han Solo thing was more of like Kylo just kind of realizing that he did the wrong thing when he had this moment with his father beforehand, and it was like recreating it in his mind. It was more like a mental like thing in his head than it was an actual like ghost appearing, whereas Luke showing up was an actual ghost appearing kind of thing. Because you are right.
That's what I thought it had to be, is like that was in his own head.
Yeah, it's still a good moment though, because it allows a way for a character to like come to his full development.
Yeah. Kylo Ren's great.
Yeah, Driver does a great job.
Yeah.
So we get to the end of the movie. Rey goes and visits Tatooine to Luke's old farmstead. Where
Full
he grew up.
circle.
Full circle. She buries Luke's and Leia's lightsaber in the sand. That's kind of like the grave site. What?
Continue.
Okay. Reveals her own lightsaber, which is neat.
Yeah, it's yellow.
Yeah.
What is this yellow? Okay, so you made a lightsaber at Disney World. We talked about this.
Yeah.
But they use a crystal inside of it that like harnesses the power of their like Force essence.
Yeah. So
Hers is...
so this is like pulling from old lore.
It means she needs to drink more water.
That's what I thought.
So basically what happens is when you go and make your lightsaber, you go to this planet called Ilum, which might be destroyed now. I don't know. But you go to this place where there's kyber crystals and they're naturally formed. and the Force kind of directs you to where your crystal is. In the old days of like SWORD and whatever, your crystal color determined basically what kind of Jedi you were meant to be. So like, a blue crystal was supposed to be a guardian, the more like attacker is the wrong word, but like combat oriented Jedi, someone that's there for the people and protects the people and is there in the front lines. The green was more of the counselor kind of Jedi, which is there to negotiate, being more force sensitive and kind of being there as like a medium between the force and the people and like everything else was happening around them. And then there was the Sentinels, which were kind of like which were the yellow crystals, which were very much like making sure that order through the Jedi, maintaining peace and order throughout the Jedi Order, and that there's not corruption within, basically, and as well as being kind of like your defenders of the galaxy, more or less, of just being of your moral defenders than anything else.
That's cool because Rey is adopted into the Force.
Yeah.
She is a Palpatine, but she really like inherently she's a nobody, just like her parents were, and they really drive that home in this movie. Is like your parents were nobody, you're just a scavenger, and it's like that's who she is, you know. And I think at the very end of the movie, like this old lady on some tauntaun shows up or whatever, and then like this weird camel, and she's like, "Oh, nobody's visited this place in forever." And she's like, yeah, and she goes, "I'm Rey." And earlier in the movie, there's this moment where this little alien child, she's like, "What's your family name?" And she's like, "It's just Rey." And at the very end, like Luke and Leia are like standing there, like Leia unlocked the ghost silhouette because she had a lightsaber though. So like let's note that first. She unlocked that character effects. And they're standing there like creepily adoption parents, like just nodding at her, like say it, bitch.
With that, yeah, she ends up adopting the name Skywalker, and that's kind of the end of the movie. It ends with the twin suns setting, like first movie with Luke looking out, nice scene and all that. Credits roll.
So it's weird. So we glossed over one moment where Kylo Ren heals Rey, and they're like, and then right, like how you heal people with the Force is you give them your life force. Both of them were like, Rey died, Kylo's obviously on the brink of death, but he heals her and they're both alive for just a moment together. They kiss in this weird embrace because she knows him as Ben. He's Ben Solo. Yeah, he is now Ben. He's no longer Kylo Ren. And I was like, at first I was like a little bit weirded out, but at the same time I'm like, no, they've been like forced teasing each other like the entire trilogy, and they do have this really weird bond.
You could say it's forced sexual tension.
Yeah, but at the end of the movie, after she like adopts the name Skywalker, all I could think of was, "Step bro, what are you doing using your force healing on me?" And I was just like, that makes them step siblings.
Weirdly. I also kind of didn't like that he didn't show up in that family moment with Luke and Leia, which is like
why? Like, yeah, I'm like, why Luke and Leia? Like, we got Ben, we got Obi. No, we got Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Yoda at the end of part 6.
Yeah.
Like, give us more people. There's more dead people now.
But yeah. Anyways, Bradley, I hope you enjoyed your viewing of Star Wars: Rise of the Skywalker.
I can now win Star Wars trivia, and I know everything.
I am not done ranting yet.
Okay, I can't wait. I have one really nerd rage moment, and
the cinematography in this movie is great. I loved it. There were great shots throughout the entire movie. There's this one moment when they're on the moon of Endor, and the Death Star has crashed into this ocean planet, and she like climbs through this, and there's like the old throne of Palpatine there, and there's this door off to the left of it, and it opens automatically for her, and it's this flashback to part 6.
It's like the scene in part 5 where Luke faces himself in Dagobah.
Yeah, I didn't remember if it was part 5 or 6, but anyway, they have this flashback to part 5 where it gets really dark. And Luke turns around, and you just see that glint of his face right there. And they did it again, and Ray turns around after the door closes. It's pitch black. You know it's pitch black in this room, but she turns around and you just see that little highlight of her face.
It was a good scene.
I enjoyed it a lot. Also, they still kept using puppets in this movie, which is like
That's
the
great.
Mandalorian is using the Yoda puppet and everything. And that's nice to not see it's all CGI. Obviously, like there are points where it's so CGI you can't tell. Like Leia, like there's this point where Leia and Rey hug in the movie, and I'm like, how did they do that? That's way too good.
They say it's like they had like leftover footage from Last Jedi, but I don't know where, like, because she blends so well into the background, because that's usually the biggest takeaways. You can tell like when someone's like cut into the background.
Yeah,
and you can tell.
There's a lot of back shots of Leia too, so it's like obviously this is just a stand-in actor for the footage they didn't have. But like the moment with Rey and Kylo fighting over the transport ship, the ending shot on Tatooine is the flashback to the intro to
New Hope. Yeah.
Man, like that. Just seeing that ending shot alone, I was like, you know, I would rewatch these again and not be mad.
I would put this movie on the background and be able to be okay with it playing and not get frustrated like I do with episodes 1 and 2. like my bare minimum is you have to be above the Sith line, the Revenge of the Sith line. If your movie ever falls below that line, you fucked up. That's my opinion.
That line, actually, I think Joe and I both established that line is Solo.
Yeah,
and if you're below that line, that's the Sith line.
Yeah,
above it is. I enjoyed it more as a trilogy now that it's complete.
Yeah, once again, it's I mean, I enjoyed it. Once again, I think if that first half was its own movie, people would enjoy it a lot more. I want to rant about one thing, and it's something really dumb and bullshit. But I want to rant about it. So in the scene where Rey goes and gets the Exegol, which is the dark side planet, she uses Luke's X-wing, which is supposed to be a throwback to, you know, the original trilogy. But in order for her to get that, she ends up stealing Kylo's TIE fighter, and Kylo doesn't have a TIE fighter, and so he has to use a different one. When he arrives in a regular ass TIE fighter, which is bullshit because they don't have hyperdrives at all in the series.
Oh.
And it kind of made me like get really upset because that's like nerd knowledge 101 for Star Wars. So that TIE fighters can't operate.
That's really in depth, because I thought you were gonna say, where did he get the TIE fighter? Because at first I was wondering, I was like, where did he get it?
No, I can believe he can conjure up a TIE fighter, like he has something standby. But the fact of the matter that it wasn't like what, because a better example would have been if he used like Darth Vader's TIE Advance from New Hope that has an actual hyperdrive. And would make sense because he's supposed to be the Darth Vader fan. I don't know. It was just something that made me actually like bust the literal vein in my nerd head for a hot second.
He got the TIE fighter from the moon on Endor, because like
but that's the problem, is it doesn't have a hyperdrive, which is what you need to get to there. Like that's the whole point.
They probably had bunch of hyperdrives just lying around that Death Star, you know.
Hyperdrives are literally as big as a fucking TIE fighter. Anyways, I'm done. Anyways, official review: Star Wars: Rise of Skywalker it was fun. If you're going Star Wars,
TIE fighters don't have hyperdrives.
Yes. Okay. Probably. What'd you think?
I give it a 2.5 out of 5.
I guess we'll text Willer.
Yeah, he's playing video games back there.
Yeah.
You know, so I have a question, Joe.
Yes.
Had they just shown him showing up on the planet and not what ship he got on there on, would that have been better?
I could at least chalk it up to he got back with the First Order and he just came down with them. But yeah, I don't know.
Well, you guys had some fun for 45 minutes.
Yeah,
sorry.
We did too. We heard you back there.
It was recording, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I kept. If you're ever wondering why you saw me come up periodically, I was just moving the mouse, making sure nothing went to sleep.
We told Bradley basically the entire summary of the movie.
Well,
Yeah,
Bradley,
no, movie
what's your score?
I mean, I give it a 2.5 out of 5. I don't really have feelings one way or the other.
Not a lot of visual representation on
There
screen.
were some parts that they told me something that happened, and I was like, oh shit, all right.
Yeah.
Neat.
We skipped the part in the movie that me and Joe also decided, like, if you had to go to the bathroom during this one part, that would be.
Oh yeah.
Is it just me or is Tyler quiet as fuck?
Yeah, Tyler, you got more quiet.
You're
Or...
quiet all of a
Oh,
sudden.
just now? Because
Yeah,
my
near the end.
microphone's still right here.
Let me end this segment. Because we're
Never
still
know. This is
recording.
what people
Alright.
come here